There are moments in gaming that don't just leave an impression, they leave a scar, an emptiness that you're left with after you finish a game that only replaying it straight after can fill. The Last of Us is one of those moments. It didn't just push boundaries in terms of storytelling, you could argue that it redefined them. It was more than just a story. It was more of an experience, a reckoning, a mirror held up to our own fragility, forcing us to confront what it truly means to survive, to protect and to love in a world that has forgotten what love even looks like. A story and theme that is still relevant in the world we live in today. When The Last of Us was released, it was a turning point. A game that arrived at the perfect moment in a time where storytelling in video games was still fighting to be recognised as art. It was more than just a journey through a broken world. It was a story that broke many of us. Joel and Ellie, in many ways, could be viewed as reflections of our own desperations, our own fears, and our own longing for connection in a world that often feels cruel and indifferent. For an entire generation, this game became more than entertainment. It was a testament to the power of storytelling, to the emotional weight a game could carry. It shattered the illusion that video games were just about escapism, because The Last of Us didn't let us escape. It forced us to feel, to sit with our guilt, to question our choices, and to understand that sometimes survival doesn't come without sacrifices. Every haunting note of the soundtrack, every quiet moment between Joel and Ellie, every shocking turn in the narrative, it all wove together into something unforgettable. It left us devastated and in many ways changed. And a game like that doesn't just come and go. It stays, it lingers in the back of our minds, in the weight of its final, gut-wrenching moment. The game's world is built upon a grim and haunting premise. A fungal infection known as the cordyceps brain infection has devastated civilization. This real-life fungus, which infects insects, has been fictionalised into a terrifying disease that spreads through spores and bites, turning humans into mindless aggressive creatures. Unlike typical zombie stories, The Last of Us presents a world that is not only infested with the infected, but also overrun by the cruelty of human desperation, and explores several different themes, such as loss, grief, but most importantly, love and finding connections. The game opens in 2013, on the night of the outbreak, when Joel, a single father, attempts to flee the chaos with his daughter Sarah. In a heart-wrenching sequence, Sarah is shot and killed by a soldier under government orders to contain the spread.
Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. I'm gonna pick you up. I know.
This moment defines Joel's character for the rest of the story, shaping him into a hardened, emotionally distant person. The narrative then jumps 20 years into the future, where society has collapsed into quarantine zones, lawless wastelands, and violent survivor groups fighting over the remnants of civilization. In this world, trust is rare, and survival often comes at the expense of others. The infected are not only the threat, bandits, militia groups, and desperate survivors are just as dangerous. This bleak setting serves as a reflection of Joel's mindset, hardened, untrusted, and unwilling to form attachments. However, everything changes when he meets Ellie, a girl who may be the last hope for humanity. Joel is one of the most complex and morally ambiguous protagonists we've had the pleasure of playing. Unlike traditional video game heroes who are often depicted as just clear-cut good guys, Joel exists in a morally grey area. His actions throughout the game are shaped by deep personal trauma, survival instincts, and ultimately, love. He is not a man seeking redemption. He is a man who has spent 2 decades burying his emotions, doing whatever it takes to survive in a world that no longer values morality. His journey is not about saving the world, it is about learning to live again in the wake of unimaginable loss. Joel's story begins in 2013 on the night of the cordyceps outbreak. At this point, he is an ordinary single father living in Texas, raising his teenage daughter Sarah. Their relationship is warm, loving and natural, showing that Joel, before the world fell apart, was capable of deep affection. However, in a matter of hours, everything changes. When the outbreak begins, Joel, Sarah and his brother Tommy attempt to flee. Chaos unfolds, neighbours turn into infected, the military imposes martial law, and society collapses. Then, in one of the most heartbreaking moments, Joel watches helplessly as a soldier shoots Sarah, killing her in his arms. This moment is the emotional core of Joel's character. It is the defining tragedy that shapes every decision he makes for the rest of the game, desperately trying to keep her alive, and the raw anguish in his voice as he pleads with her not to die set the stage for the man he will become.
No, please. Please don't.
In that moment, something inside Joel shatters. The game then jumps forward 20 years, skipping over the details of how he survived the immediate aftermath of the outbreak. When we see him again, he is a completely different man, hardened, emotionally closed off, and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. The Joel we meet in the present day timeline of the game is a man who has lived through unimaginable horrors. In the 2 decades since Sarah's death, he has transformed into someone almost unrecognisable. While the game never explicitly details everything Joel has done during his time, it strongly implies that he has committed countless acts of violence and cruelty in order to survive. Joel has become a smuggler, operating in the Boston quarantine zone along his partner Tess. The two make a living by trading contraband, dealing with criminals, and carrying out dangerous jobs for the highest bidder. There are hints that Joel has been involved in some truly brutal acts, such as executions, torture, and possibly even worse. When he threatens someone, there is no doubt that he means it. He has become a man who is feared and respected in equal measure, known for his ruthlessness. His philosophy is simple: survival comes first. In this world, morality is a luxury that most cannot afford. Joel has no interest in heroism or saving others. His only concern is staying alive. This is a direct result of the trauma he suffered when he lost his daughter. He once believed in love, in family, and the idea that people could be good, but after losing his daughter and witnessing the collapse of society, he abandoned those beliefs. To him, caring about others is dangerous because it only leads to more loss and more grief. Ellie, on the other hand, starts the journey with a more innocent perspective. She has never killed before, and has been sheltered from much of the world's brutality. However, as she travels with Joel, she is forced to take lives and harden herself to the violence around her. One of the defining moments of this theme occurs when she shoots a man to save Joel. Instead of celebrating her bravery, Joel is shaken, realising that she is now being forced into the same dark world he inhabits. As the journey continues, she is repeatedly put in situations where survival demands violence, culminating in a traumatic encounter with David. By the time she kills him, she has fully stepped into the grim reality of survival, leaving behind the last traces of a childhood innocence. However, while Joel has become emotionally closed off, he is not completely without feeling. His relationship with Tess suggests that she is one of the few people he trusts. Though their partnership is largely built on pragmatism, there are subtle hints that they care for each other in an unspoken way. When Tess is bitten and sacrifices herself to buy Joel and Ellie time to escape, he does not mourn her in a way that you would expect, but his actions afterwards suggest that her death affects him deeply.
Hey, look, about Tess, I don't even know what
Here's how this thing's gonna play out. You don't bring up Tess. Ever. Matter of fact, we just keep our histories to ourselves.
When Joel is tasked with smuggling Ellie out of the quarantine zone, he initially sees it as just another job. To him, Ellie is nothing more than cargo, a means to an end. He is given a task and he intends to complete it without forming any emotional attachment. At first, Joel resents Ellie's presence. She's young, talkative, and curious, qualities that contrast sharply with his. He refuses to answer her questions about his past, and he actively avoids forming any sort of bond with her. However, despite his best efforts to keep his distance, Ellie begins to break through his walls. Unlike other people Joel has encountered, Ellie does not fear him, nor does she treat him like a killer. She talks to him, jokes with him, and challenges him in ways that others do not. Slowly, against his will, Joel begins to care. One of the first signs of this shift occurs when Ellie saves Joel's life by shooting a man who is attacking him. At first, Joel is angry, not because she did something wrong, but because he does not want her to have to kill. Yet, rather than shutting her out completely, he begins to teach how to defend herself. This moment marks the beginning of his transformation. He is no longer just a protector, he's a mentor and a father figure in the making. Ellie has never known a stable parental figure. Growing up in a military quarantine zone, she lacks true family and has only experienced fleeting friendships. As the journey progresses, she begins to see Joel as the closest thing to a father she has ever had, though he resists this grown bond for much of the game. However, this changes when Joel tries to leave Ellie with Tommy, thinking it would be safer for her. When Ellie confronts him and tells him that she has lost everyone she has ever cared about, except for him, Joel is forced to acknowledge that he cares for her in a way that he has tried to suppress.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected. I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
Not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
Ultimately, he decides to stay with Ellie, implying that he's come to the realization that in some sort of way, he is like a father for her, even though he said otherwise. The most pivotal moment in Joel's emotional journey occurs during the winter section of the game. After being gravely wounded, he is left in a vulnerable state, forcing Ellie to take care of him. While she is away hunting, she is captured by a sadistic cannibal named David. She ultimately manages to kill him, but the encounter leaves her deeply traumatized. When Joel finds Ellie in the aftermath, she is in shock, her hands trembling from the violence she was forced to commit. Without hesitation, Joel embraces her and calls her baby girl, the same term of endearment he once used for Sarah.
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
Joel.
It's okay.
This is the moment that cements their bond. And by this point, Ellie is no longer just a travelling companion, she is his daughter in every way that matters. From this point forward, Joel is completely committed to protecting Ellie, no matter the cost. And when they finally reach the Fireflies, Joel learns that in order to create a cure for the cordyceps infection, Ellie must be sacrificed. For the first time in 20 years, Joel is faced with the possibility of losing someone he loves again, but this time he refuses to let it happen. His decision to slaughter the Fireflies and rescue Ellie is one of my favourites in gaming. Objectively, it's a selfish act. By saving Ellie, he potentially dooms humanity, yet on a personal level, it is an act of profound love. Joel has already lost one daughter, he will not lose another. And after escaping with Ellie, Joel lies to her about what happened, telling her that the Fireflies had already given up on finding a cure.
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. Ain't done 'em a damn bit of good, neither. They've stopped looking for a cure.
When Ellie asks him if he's telling the truth, he simply responds, "I swear."
Right now,
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
The game ends on an ambiguous note, leaving us to question whether Ellie believes Joel and whether Joel himself fully believes that he made the right choice. Although personally, I don't think Joel really cares about whether he made the right choice or not. He simply couldn't be responsible for Ellie's death and losing a daughter again. I also want to talk about Henry and Sam, as I believe they play a major role in the game as a tragic parallel to Joel and Ellie. The story serves as a reflection of the themes of survival, love and loss, reinforcing the emotional weight of the journey while foreshadowing the fragile nature of the bond between Joel and Ellie. When we encounter Henry and Sam in Pittsburgh, they are immediately positioned as a mirror image of their own partnership. Henry, like Joel, is an older survivor tasked with protecting a younger companion. Sam, like Ellie, is a child who has known nothing but the post-apocalyptic world and relies on his guardian for survival. However, while Joel and Henry share their similar responsibilities, their approaches to survival differ. Henry is more idealistic and reluctant to engage in unnecessary violence, whereas Joel is hardened and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. This contrast highlights Joel's moral ambiguity. While Henry still clings to some sense of ethical restraint, Joel has long since abandoned any illusions of morality when it comes to protecting those he cares about. Ellie's relationship with Sam provides a rare moment of innocence in an otherwise brutal world. Unlike most of the people she encounters, Sam is close to her age, and the brief friendship allows Ellie to experience something resembling a normal childhood. They joke, talk about comic books, and share their fears about the world they live in. However, this fleeting happiness is overshadowed by the inevitability of a loss, a lesson Ellie is forced to learn over and over again. The tragedy of Henry and Sam comes to a devastating conclusion when Sam is bit and hides his infection from the group. The following morning, he turns into an infected and attacks Ellie, forcing Henry to shoot his own brother to protect her. The horror of this moment breaks Henry completely. The one thing keeping him going, his duty to protect his brother, is now gone. Without hesitation, he turns the gun on himself, unable to face a world without his little brother.
Shit!
Ellie? Ellie, are you alright?
Oh my god.
Sam?
Oh no.
Sam? Henry? Ellie, stay there. Henry?
What have you done?
I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay? Oh, okay, easy.
This is your fault.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault.
Henry! Henry, no!
Oh my god.
This moment is one of the most heartbreaking in the game, reinforcing the game's themes of loss and the fragile nature of hope. It serves as a grim reminder to both Joel and Ellie of what could happen to them if they were ever separated. Ellie in particular is deeply shaken by Sam's death, as it reinforces her belief that everyone she cares about eventually leaves her. Joel, while less outwardly affected, seems to internalise the tragedy, perhaps strengthening his resolve to never let the same fate befall Ellie. Joel and Ellie's relationship is what makes The Last of Us such a deeply emotional experience. It's a story about grief, healing, and the lengths we go for the people we love. The journey is not just about survival, it's about finding meaning in a world that has lost it. And by the end of the game, Joel is no longer just a hardened survivor, and Ellie is no longer just a girl looking for purpose. They are family, bound by choices they have made for better or worse. Unlike many games that feature a clear villain, The Last of Us presents a world where everyone is simply trying to survive, often at the expense of others like we've already talked about. This moral ambiguity forces us to question who, if anyone, is truly in the right. Throughout the game, we encounter various groups and individuals who could be perceived as enemies, but none fit the mould of a stereotypical villain. The hunters in Pittsburgh, for example, are brutal and merciless, attacking anyone who enters their territory. However, their actions stem from the same instinct to survive that drives Joel. They were once ordinary people who, through desperation, became ruthless scavengers. The Fireflies, while initially portrayed as freedom fighters trying to restore order, are willing to sacrifice Ellie without her consent in the name of a possible cure. Even David, one of the most obviously sinister characters in the game, believes that his violent ways are justified as a means to keep his people alive. This lack of a clear villain allows the game to explore the idea that morality is subjective in a world without law. The lines between good and evil blur as survival takes priority, and nowhere is this more evident than in the character of Joel. While Joel is the protagonist, he can also be seen as its antagonist in a broader moral sense. His actions, while driven by love and personal loss, often make him more just as ruthless as the people he fights against. From the very beginning, it is clear that he has done terrible things to survive. When Ellie asks him about his past, he alludes to a history of violence and morally questionable choices. Unlike Henry, who still clings to some moral restraint, Joel has no regrets about killing, torturing and deceiving others if it serves his interests. The most controversial example of Joel's moral ambiguity is his decisions at the end of the game. Faced with the knowledge that the Fireflies intend to operate on Ellie, killing an entire hospital full of people in the process, while this act is framed as an emotional climax, is also an undeniably selfish decision. The Fireflies, however flawed, were attempting to develop a cure that could have saved countless lives. Joel, unwilling to lose another daughter figure, robs humanity of that chance without Ellie's consent. He does not give her the opportunity to choose her own fate, instead making the decision for her based on his own grief and fear. This act can be interpreted in two ways. as the ultimate expression of love or as the ultimate act of selfishness. While some may sympathise with Joel's motivations, his actions are undeniably brutal and they will have lasting consequences. The Fireflies, already struggling to survive, are left in ruins, and the cycle of violence Joel perpetrates will inevitably come back to haunt him, as we learn in The Last of Us Part 2. Joel is not a villain in the traditional sense, but he is not a hero either. He exists in a morally grey space, shaped by a world that has forced him to abandon traditional notions of right and wrong. His actions raise uncomfortable questions about the nature of survival, love and sacrifice, making him one of the most complex protagonists or antagonists in video game history. But by refusing to provide a clear antagonist, the game challenges players to consider different perspectives and moral dilemmas. In the end, the game does not offer easy answers, only the harsh reality that in a world like this, everyone is capable of being both a hero and a villain. The gameplay, and especially the combat, is grounded in realism, making every encounter feel intense and weighty. Every punch, gunshot and melee attack carries a visceral weight. Shotguns are satisfying and brutal with serious recoil that makes every shot feel even more impactful and powerful. Pistols are more accurate but do less damage. The bow and arrow is great for stealth, and you have to take into consideration the drop on the arrow depending on the distance, making it slightly more challenging to use. Melee is brutal and gritty, and every punch is emphasised due to the great audio design. Using a pipe, an axe or a baseball bat all feel and sound different from one another. All the weapons also sound great and emphasise the punchiness and power of each weapon. My favourite weapon to use is always the shotgun. It allows you to blow the legs off your enemies and then finish them off with a quick melee. At times enemies will plead to let them live, which makes the world feel more alive, but in this world survival comes at a cost, so personally, I never let them survive.
No shit, no, please don't kill me, man, please, let me go!
As you progress throughout the game, you expand your arsenal of weapons. You start with a pistol, and slowly increase the amount of weapons you have. You have a revolver, a shotgun, a hunting rifle, a deagle-like weapon, and towards the end game, a flamethrower. The variety is good here, and the lack of ammo in the game drives you to use all these weapons and switch up your approach at times. The game has a big emphasis on scavenging materials and crafting. Resources are scarce and link perfectly into exploration, but also the theme of survival. The scarcity of materials and ammo depends on the difficulty you're playing. The higher the difficulty, the rarer the materials are to find. And personally, I think playing this game at one of the higher difficulties actually makes the gameplay more immersive and satisfying. You never find yourself having an abundance of ammo. You have to make every shot count. Decide whether using your weapon is the right choice, or maybe taking a stealthy approach is the better option. Having to decide between which approach is better suited adds a little bit of strategy to the gameplay. The crafting system is also a huge part of the game. Crafting medkits, shivs or molotovs is essential to survival, so the game forces you to scavenge materials and decide which item you should prioritise when crafting. Similar to the weapons, you start the game off with only having the ability to craft a few items, and as you progress, the amount of items increases, creating another layer of strategy to the gameplay. Crafting happens in real time. You can craft while fighting or just traversing around the world. A lot of games require you to enter a separate menu in order to craft items. The ability to craft items in real time adds immersion to the game and makes it more grounded, but it also adds tension. Having to choose between crafting a shiv or a medkit whilst a clicker is fast approaching and you have no ammo can really increase the intensity of the game. The game also has an upgrade system where you can upgrade your skills based on how many supplements you have found scattered around the world. And just like crafting, this system encourages you to go out and explore every room and every drawer that you can find. The upgrades are straightforward. The game doesn't have an overcomplicated skill tree of abilities that hardly alter the gameplay. You can upgrade things such as the time it takes to craft items, increase the range of your hearing ability, or even decrease weapon sway. Like I said, they're not groundbreaking, but do make a substantial enough difference to make you look for the supplements that are needed. Weapon upgrades also play a big part in the way weapons perform and handle. You can upgrade weapons using a workbench that can be found around the world. Upgrades require parts which can be found scattered around the world, just like other resources and materials. There's a vast variety of upgrades that can be carried out, especially towards the end of the game when you've expanded your arsenal of weapons. You will need to find tools that will allow you to further upgrade your weapons, and what I really like about the workbench and upgrading your guns is that you can actually see Joel applying new parts to weapons, and as you acquire more tools, you see them in his stash. The whole process, just like crafting, adds immersion to the game. Due to resources and ammunition being scarce, stealth plays a major part in gameplay. You're encouraged to use stealth and avoid direct confrontations whenever possible. Sneaking past enemies, using cover, and silently taking down enemies with shivs or chokeholds becomes an essential way of dealing with both infected and human enemies. You will find bottles and bricks scattered around the world which can be used in order to lure enemies away or toward you, allowing you to either go past unnoticed or give you the opportunity for a silent takedown. The game has a hearing feature which allows you to see enemies through walls, which can aid you in manoeuvring around them and plan your attacks. But something that I really like is the lack of visual cues when you get spotted. Instead, you receive an audio cue that increases in volume the closer you are to being spotted. Overall, the combat isn't exactly something to write home about, but it's good and enjoyable enough. Its grittiness and the feeling of never having enough ammo or materials tie into the story and themes of survival. Unlike its story, it's not revolutionary, but it doesn't need to be. The Last of Us is an artistic achievement that demonstrates the power of interactive storytelling. Its emotionally charged narrative, compelling characters, immersive gameplay make it a masterpiece that stands the test of time. What makes The Last of Us truly remarkable is its ability to elicit genuine emotions from players, making them feel deeply connected to the story and its characters. It raises profound questions about love, sacrifice, and the moral dilemmas of survival, leaving players contemplating its themes long after you finish the game. It's a game that not only entertains but also challenges perceptions of storytelling within the gaming medium. Ultimately, the game is a testament to the evolving artistry of video games. It proves that games can be as emotionally compelling as films or even literature, and it continues to set the standard for what interactive entertainment can achieve. As it endures through remakes and adaptations such as TV shows, its legacy will persist, reminding players of the emotional depth and storytelling brilliance that make it a true masterpiece.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.